So as I was writing this sermon for today, I kept having a bunch of sort of tangential thoughts to gender. It sort of would go this way, and then over here, and over here. And I kept trying to line them up in this logical way, and it didn't work. So today the sermon is going to be like a little bit of a circle, or a little bit of a spiral, as I try and tangent our way through our time together. And the first tangent for me is, Benji mentioned, I grew up here. I was ordained here roughly a year ago, last March. And so being in this space just holds a lot of memories for me. It feels like there's ghosts running around, not in a bad way, but all of the memories of the people that I've been. One of the memories that comes up for me today in particular was being 14 in my first year of high school and being part of a coming out day service that the youth group put together. And that was one of my first times being part of putting together a service and speaking in front of people and just getting to celebrate being queer. It makes me think of, although it wasn't in this space, going to Camp Devonville Pines in Southern California, which is a UU camp, and meeting a trans person there for the first time. And I will say, I fangirled real hard over the stories that he wrote there. The nostalgia tangent, I think of that one as. The next tangent that kept coming up as I thought about this topic was the pronoun question. The pronoun question. And for me, the pronoun question is really this series of questions that just lives in most of my relationships, which is, so at what point do I talk about my pronouns? What point do I bring that up? How do I talk about it? Do I want to have conversations about how that person feels about gender, and feels about my gender, and feels about they, them pronouns? Then there's sort of the set of questions when I know that I use they, them pronouns, and I have heard them use the wrong pronouns, or for some folks who don't know that I use they, them pronouns and use the wrong pronouns, where I'm like, do I want to correct this? I have a feeling this is going to make us both uncomfortable. Is this worth interrupting this conversation that has absolutely nothing to do with gender to have that conversation? And again, do I want to have that conversation about what they think about my gender, my pronouns, those many conversations? And to be honest, I don't often have that conversation. I just kind of let it be. And I wonder about that sometimes, because I know that folks who had those conversations, whether that's about pronouns or about their own identities, is part of how I exist in the world and the way that I do. The pronoun question tangent. And then I sort of have this my own identity tangent around it. And for that, I wanted to connect back to my ordination. My friend, the almost Reverend Aaliyah Shinborough, they are now in fellowship with the National Unitarian Universalist Association and will be ordained this spring, and I'm really excited for them. But for my ordination, they wrote a gender prayer for me. And so this is a piece of that prayer they wrote. Sky, today is an invitation to deeper relationship, a call for each of us present to affirm your ministry and the impact you have in each of our lives. This invitation is a precious gift, an opportunity to witness you in your many aspects, your spirituality, your identities, your leadership. Through the coming blessing, we call into connection your trans and your spiritual identities. We call into the room all of those transgender trailblazers who came before and call to mind the many gender transgressors without whom you would not exist as a person and as a minister in the ways you do today. We honor you in the fullness and multiplicity of your experiences of gender and locate this moment within a continuum of trans ancestry, embodiment, and ministry. My own identity tangents. And moving through all of those, there is then the messy tangent, is what I call it. And for that one, I want to start with this quote that Reverend Casey Slack said in a service that I put together for Unitarian Universalist Justice Arizona, our state justice network for UUs. We put together a service that was sort of aimed specifically for trans folk. And Reverend Casey Slack, as part of their sermon for that, said this: "You're not required to make sense. You're not required to make sense." There's a part of my brain, a part of who I am, that really likes when things are lined up logically, that wants to put the things in the order and sort of see them be clear and linear and neat. And I will tell you, that is not the part of me that has been useful as I have been journeying through my gender or my spirituality. Instead, it's the part of me that gets comfortable with mess and with just letting things be what they are. So moving through that, and moving back through nostalgia, I want to come back to the pronoun question. Because part of the pronoun question is the practice. I mess up pronouns all the time. I messed up my own pronouns. I feel like I'm, at this point, pretty good with they, them pronouns, and that's because I've used them a lot. I have friends who use them, I use them for myself, I've practiced. I'm still practicing for folks who use these or zim. I'm still practicing for folks who just use their name instead of any pronouns at all. It really is, and just to be it's not a thing where I arrive perfect and know all of the things, right? Practice it's a commitment. It's a thing where when I think about that person in my head, when I get it wrong, I'm like, oh, no, wait, this is it. So that when I say it to their face, I am less likely to say the wrong pronoun. That's how I practice. Yeah. Moving through pronoun question, moving back through my own identity, I want to come back to messiness. Because like I said, I have the part of me that loves tearing things apart and sort of studying the pieces. I was thinking about anatomy as a sort of way of looking at this, right? I think it's so cool to think about bones and then muscles and then the blood on top of them and the skin on top of that, all the little cells that make up our bodies. To pull apart all the little pieces that make up a body and to sort of look at them individually and how they work. And there is something that gets a little lost, I think, when you do that, which is the fullness of the body altogether, the person that inhabits that body, the joy of dance, the joy of living, the joy of, feeling vibrations that create singing, but that is something that is just singing, and the pure joy of that. Moving through all of those pieces, moving back through, brought me back to nostalgia. Like I said, it feels like there's the ghosts of all my past selves running around this sanctuary, running around this campus. And when I think about my past, I can often remember all the cringy things I've done, remember all the ways that I've messed up or haven't been the person I wanted to be. And then I think about all my future selves where I will be exactly the person that I would like to be now. And I wanted to take some time just to honor my past ghosts, my past selves, and the fullness of who they were, and in celebrating their lives for exactly where they were, when they were, as they were. I want to honor and celebrate the yearnings and the worries that often make up the people I want to be. And through all of that, of course, I want to honor the person that I am right now, in the fullness and messiness and all of the things that that person is. And I also, want to open space for you all to honor yourselves as well. So moving through the tangents, through the spiral, going through nostalgia, pronoun question, I wanted to come back to my gender identity. And I was going back and forth about how much I actually wanted to say about my identity in this sermon. But I'll give you the Cliff Notes version, which is that I have 3 gender aspects that I think about when I think about my gender. And one is a female or woman aspect that is rooted in how I grew up, that is rooted deeply in feminism. There's a male or masculine aspect that I sometimes wrestle with because I have experienced some things because of patriarchy. And I keep coming back to it and finding something real and meaningful there for me. And there's the aspect of myself, the third aspect, that is neither of these things and more than these things, and really at home in that messy tangent, and is very, very non-binary. And it's these 3 together, the conversations between them, that constitute my gender. So moving through all of those pieces, all of the tangents, I want to take us to something like the center. And the center of this particular spiral for me is this really sacred space. The picture I have in my head is usually outside, usually next to a tree. A space where I just get to be, where I can let sort of all of these pieces just not be filling my head and filling my space, but just being there, being witnessed by the tree, by the space that I am in. Breathing in and out. And letting myself be in that sacred, sacred space of who I am. And then I take one more breath in, one more breath out, and I start the spiral all over again.